TJ Kartes, I grew up in Blue Prairie, Minnesota. Does anybody know what Blue Prairie is famous for? We're the home of the Awesome Blossoms. So as that being your sports team, you have a couple options in life. You can take an alternative lifestyle, which I really wasn't into, or you get in the ag. So I towards the ag side. I went to University of Minnesota Waseca before it was a prison. Maybe it was a prison when I was there too, but I had a lot of fun there. So I probably should have been locked up a few nights, but I wasn't. I worked at a large feed mill for several years. And what that helped me out with is I actually worked with large integrators in the hog industry. So I learned how to work with large producers on what they need, how they function, the margins they work off from. So it's really a good learning experience for me. I've always been with my uncle on the farm, and a couple of years ago we not really parted ways. His son came home to farm. My boys and I are starting our own operation up. We're doing a different spin on it. We're taking farms that have been degraded for certain reasons, and we're trying to restore them back in a productive land. And part of the reason we're doing that is a couple of reasons. One is I keep track of this urban sprawl in Minnesota and the Midwest, and we've lost a lot of good productive ground in the last 20 years. Drive by any city, we drive anywhere, and there's developments on stuff that was farm ground at one time. At some point, we'll have to restore a farm ground that isn't the most productive and make it productive somehow. So we're trying to work at that. That's part of what we do. I've sold seed corn since 1996. I went for my first cover crop meeting in 2009. I did my first presentation doing this where I was really getting up working for Saddle Butte for Jennifer down in Brown County. And we had like 5-6 people at the first meeting, and 4 of them really didn't believe in any of this crap we said. And the other 2, I think, kind of got into it. And the next year we had 40 there, and they really got in because we had preparing to plant. So that was awesome. I mean, preparing to plant was a great motivation to use cover crops because we did a lot of fun things. But I went to this first meeting in 2009. I remember this guy saying, and he's one of our competitors out of the Willamette Valley, where the company I work for now. He said, if you're north of 20 in Iowa, it's going to be hard to make this work. And if you're north of I-90 in Minnesota, it won't work. And I thought, really? Because Gabe Brown is way north of us. I know people in Canada doing it. And I thought, well, that can't be right. Why don't they want us to do it up here? Well, it wasn't that they didn't want us to do it. They just didn't feel that we could make it work in the northern region. And we've proven that wrong over and over and over again. So I show everybody I live right down here. We're up in here. The part of this that's really interesting is right here is the start of the Straight River, which goes into the Cannon River, which is almost a 700,000 acre watershed. It's about 500,000 acres tillable. Right here is the start of the Cedar River watershed, which goes all the way through Iowa into the edge of Missouri and dumps into the Mississippi. But all the water out of all here goes to Mississippi in one way or another. So I got to go to the Gulf, and when you talk about stuff now, it's always pre-COVID or after COVID is our verbiage now. So pre-COVID, I got to go to the Gulf and talk to fishermen who have had to change their lifestyles because of the epoxy zone getting bigger, the sediment in the bay, all the things that are changing in their world because of practices we do up the stream. And I think that's something that you have to look at as where we live is really the beginning of a lot of these watersheds. The other part is all of this water, same thing, except for up here goes north. The rest of this all goes south down to the Mississippi. It's a broad area that feeds to one point in the U.S. I was at Commodity Classic 2 years ago, and they're talking in New Orleans. It's going to take $350 million to dredge the bay or the Gulf there again so they can load ships, because they can't load them full. They have to take them out to the sea and finish topping them off. And it costs how many millions of dollars per ship to do that? Part of it is the sediment and silt that goes down there. Now, Mother Nature does a lot of that on her own too. It's not just us in the ag world. Municipals do things also. But we are the biggest land footprint in this. And I've talked to professors and stuff, and they said, a municipal can dump more in than ag land, but ag land's a bigger base. So we get the black eye first. So I always say in ag, we change. Then when somebody else is doing something wrong, we can point the fingers, which that's kind of fun when you get to do that once in a while. The other part I put this up is I cover this state, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. I cover a little bit in northern Missouri and western Nebraska. I always say I cover the area where this should not work, but it does. I have clients in Canada. The other reason I put this up here is all of our cereals, grains that we market as a company, come out of Canada, northern Minnesota, the Dakotas, South Dakota, western Minnesota, and we raise oats on our farm in southern Minnesota. So everything we promote comes from areas where it's going to work. The part I tell guys about this is you get into southern Kansas, southern Missouri, Oklahoma, and you bring back winter grains out of that area into this area, they do not overwinter as well. After 1 or 2 years of production, the winter hardiness fall because they do not have what they call it winter, not even close to winter. That's not winter. I've been there in a sweatshirt going, you call this winter? Yeah. No, I don't think so. Come to my world when it's 55 below zero. I'll explain winter to you. I work for a company based out of Willamette Valley. Right down here is where our company's based out of, right off Highway 5. The reason I show this is 95% of the grass seed in the world is raised in this valley. For the world, not just the US, the world. And then there's a major grass area in northern Minnesota that's raised. But we also raise brassicas, legumes in this area too. But this is where all of our major grass production, brassicas, and legumes come out of. The other reason I show this is the state of Oregon does not have Palmer amaranth. We have letters from the state office saying Palmer amaranth has never been detected in Oregon. So when people say cover crop seed has Palmer amaranth in it, it's got to be raised somewhere else, because if it's raised in the valley, it's not getting in it there. Now, there is red clover raised in northern Minnesota. There's fescues raised in Missouri. There's red clover raised in Missouri. So if it's coming from those areas, or red clover raised in Texas, it could be coming from there. But the stuff that comes from our company out of these areas does not have it in it. So I get blamed a lot for Palmer amaranth. This is the only disclaimer I ever put up here. Is anything I'm going to show you or stuff I've worked with. I might show one company's products more than another. I do not promote one company. There's many companies out here, strip till, seed boxes that work great, closing wheels that work great. It's got to work on your farm. I just am going to show you what I work with. If I talk herbicides, it's because that's what we've used. That's what it's worked. I'm not saying that's the right one. The other thing is I might say something to offend you. Sometimes I blurt out I always say it's an Archie Bunker moment. I just say stuff and comes out, and then I got to apologize for it later. If I do that, I don't mean to upset you or offend you, but I'm trying to get you to think about your operation and how you can make these changes. All right, what are we going to look at? Let's look at different species. Let's look at how you plant these species, and let's talk timing. So what are the major cover crop species? Grasses, brassicas, and legumes, okay? So grasses are a broad spectrum term. It's a monster. So there's cereals, there's true grasses, there's summer grasses, there's overwintering grasses. So there's a lot of things that fit into that. Brassica is the same way. There's warm season brassicas, cool season brassicas. And there's legumes the same way. And then there's different seed sizes of each one. And so I try to keep rolling here. I got a little long-winded yesterday in Royalton, and they kept eyeing the food, and I thought they were ready to push me off the stage. They wanted to eat. And I like to eat too. And I like Jennifer's statement. I'm going to tell that to my doctor when I go in 3 weeks, that I got to keep putting on weight until everybody's doing soil health plans, because I got to push that shovel in, and then he'll get mad and tell me to shut up and lose weight and quit screwing around. And it's just what he does. He's always on my ass. He's a skinny guy. He eats everything, and he's a skinny guy, and I'm not. And it really irritates me with him, but personal. The reason I put this on here, this is seed production in southern Minnesota. We were ridge till guys for years. So when guys go to strip till and they talk about moving the strip, I don't get that. Because as a ridge tiller, we built the ridge, you never moved the ridge. You didn't move the ridge from here to here, 15 inches. It didn't work that way. But we had done grid sampling, all the stuff our supplier told us to do, nutrient management. Look at the dark green, light green, dark green. You think we had excess fertilizer? Absolutely. Now, we get very lazy and bored because we don't have enough to do some days. So we actually went out and cut. When we had the heads come out, we did the clipper test to see the yield difference. And there's 20 bushels on winter wheat difference on those strips. But the other side was, look at how much nutrients we scavenged up by using that cereal grain. All right. So this is a cereal grain, overwintering cereal grain. Cereal grains are rye, oats, barley, triticale, wheat. All of them have an overwintering species to them and a spring. So when you're buying cover crop seed, make sure whoever you buy it from, you say winter rye or rye, that you know you're buying winter rye if you want it to overwinter, because there's a spring rye. And once in a while, somebody will nudge a load in the world that didn't go to the right spot, and then somebody has to defend it. Everything we buy out of the companies working licensed bonded. I see seed tests prior to this. Everything has a seed test for the NRCS programs. So, and if there's something in there that shouldn't be here, we reject the loads either out of the Dakotas or at the border. Kochia we don't want, wild vetch we don't want, wild buckwheat we don't want. Trust me, that's a gift that just keeps on giving. And it's, you know, it's kind of like that. Well, I'm not going to say it. It's a lot of gifts that keep giving. And when you're younger, you found some of those gifts that you didn't like to have. This is when your neighbors think you've lost your marbles. Literally. Planting a tall rye. It's not going to work. It's going to die. You're going to kill your beans. Yeah. It works just fine. The reason I put this here, see how high the road is compared to where the tractor is? This ground rolls quite a bit. This farm, and I'm not bragging, this farm is 400 acres in one piece. In southern Minnesota, we are lucky to have some larger farms to work with, some larger fields. It's 2-mile rounds, actually. It's several fields put together is what it was at one time. When my grandfather and my uncle ran the farm years ago before my grandfather passed away, it was a dairy farm. So this was split up into alfalfa, corn silage, oats. So this wasn't all one field. Actually, where this is right here was a drainage ditch that we filled in, that we got to do that. Now, if you tried to do that now, they'd never let you do that. But we filled it in the 80s when conservation was a fun word. They really didn't give a crap what we did. We tiled it. We buried the ditches. We actually buried like 5 ditches in this farm. There was 5 different ditches and waterways in this farm that we buried and made one big field out of it. But the reason I show this is all this water goes to this area off all the 300 acres. It just, or 400, it flows down this natural area. So during the Russell 2 study, during a heavy rain, this thing is like 10, 12 million gallons of water actually shedded off into this area, just massive numbers. We did a big tile project, still flooded. We still would drown this, 8 out of 10 years, we drowned out the crop here. We'd lose the crop completely. Okay, so what did we change? We got rid of ridge till, went to no-till, and added cover crops. Why? We knew our structure wasn't right. It still wasn't holding the water we wanted to hold. So we changed the soil, like Jennifer said, change the soil profile. We have better infiltration here now. When we do the infiltration tests, when you talk about pushing the shovel in, have Jennifer or somebody come out and do a water infiltration test on your farm. That's eye-opening. When you pour a gallon of water in, you watch and you watch and you watch, and it goes nowhere, and you think, wow, how do I get water in here? You don't. We do. This farm right now, we've taken from 2.9 organic matter to damn near 5, and it actually holds up to 6.5 inches of rain in an hour. But the whole farm holds that now, all the way up the slopes to the top of the hill. So all the stuff used to shed down goes in the tank where it belongs. Jennifer said you can only get 16,000 gallons back out of the 24,000 that you hold, but you still have it in the tank, and that's what you want. So, like I said, this used to drown out every year. Started flying rye, from corn to beans, no-tilled beans, worked out great. Water infiltration better, water quality better. We're not losing nutrients into the soil. All the package you want with the soil health side of it. And look at, the beans grew. They didn't die underneath there. They didn't shade out. I took this in a different picture spot for a reason. See how the ground does roll down? It all goes to that spot where that tractor was sitting. All that water used to shed down. So in a wet spring, early summer, we'd lose the crop. Then the beauty of our farms, because the glaciers are so nice to us, these are clay hills. They would burn up and no crop. So you drowned out the bottom 10 acres, you burned up the top 25 acres, and pretty soon you went, this sucks. This just stinks. How do we make this work better? Because we get rain in the spring, nothing in the summer, rain in the fall. All right, well, my crop doesn't stop growing in July and August. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So we got to get water in the tank. Since we started this, we've increased these areas by 50% in the yield. So you talk economics, you talk numbers, we still put all the inputs here, and now we're getting 50% better crop out of it because we're getting a crop. This used to grow up, beans would be 10, 12 bushels during the drought, corn would get this tall with no ears on it. You'd go over with the combine going, it's got a stalk. Wonder where the ears are. Then you get down here, about here, it starts to get ears. And then the bottom, you had good ears. Or You got right here, and the water had ponded and it drowned it out again. So we changed the structure of that soil by reducing tillage and then cover crops. Now we're 100% no-tillers. Went from ridge till to no-till. We've added the third crop. We raise small grains. Part of it because I buy for cover crop seed. The other part, we have a wheat market at St. Ansgar and at Lake City and Mankato. We can deliver wheat to 3 locations, and it's a pretty fair wheat crop. We're raising a good wheat crop. We're raising a good oat crop because of what we're doing. So this works for us. Won't work for everybody, works for us. But it's changed our soil structure to a load-bearing structure, takes the weight, infiltrates water. The other part is, during the heat of the summer, we've had data loggers in taking temperature probes. 40 degrees Fahrenheit, life begins. 40 degrees Celsius, which is 104 degrees, life ends. Your crop respirates, your ground shoots water out of it, your biology's dead. We have never gotten over 96 degrees at the surface. That's huge because our neighbors is 130, 140 degrees at the surface. Our crop keeps growing all year long. Our biology is devouring all this residue that's got 80 pounds of nitrogen in it, 106 pounds of potassium. I worked with a gal out of Ag Source. So if you ever get cover crops going really strong, you take biomass samples, you send in and see what you're getting for nutrients out of it. It's amazing. 12-inch rye, 70 pounds, 80 pounds of nitrogen. Right there. It's under 15 to 1 CNN ratio. Jennifer talked about CNN. 30 days, the crop has that back. So I said, let's cut fertility. She says, no. Here's why. She goes, ground's fat like you. You want to keep feeding it. Soil is selfish. She goes, remember that statement. Soil is selfish. As long as the soil is consuming, earthworms, microbes, all those things are eating. It's exchanging nutrients with your cash crop. As soon as your soil starves, you know what it says? You die today, I live today, because I've been here 1,000 years and I don't give a crap about you. Your beans, you die in 2 months anyways, we don't care about you. They quit feeding. Your crop dies off. It just stops. It doesn't keep growing. So what we've done is made our soil more resilient. Crop insurance likes that. Our banker likes that. Even though he hated what we did when we started it, he's come around and we keep making the loan payments. He's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, see? Why don't you get your other guys doing it? Another story. So it works. Those are cereal grains. You know, you can put oats on something, it dies. The overwintering, winter wheat. I do not promote winter wheat in front of corn. Winter rye, winter trit works fine. As long as you make sure you get plenty of nutrients. Let me go back to this. As long as you get, if this was corn and you'd planted corn into tall cereal rye, make sure you get plenty of nitrogen up front, 50, 60 pounds in on the planter somehow. Don't starve that corn crop. The farther north you move in Minnesota and you get lower family corns, under 94-day family corns, they like sunlight. Do not have tall rye around them. You will ding your yield. We dinged ours by 45 bushel acre one year. We have never heard the end of it from every damn neighbor around us because we screwed our corn crop up. We had a 91-day variety. We planted from, the guy actually runs Bass Hybrids out of Olivia. We used to get it through Spectrum. And it was a 91-day food grade corn. We have a food grade market in Blooming, or did have before it went broke. And we'd plant that, we'd capture an early sale because we'd combine that stuff at the end of September, it's dry. So we'd get it off. The third year we did it, we had that year, the spring got late. We didn't get the rye burned off. The rye got tall. We got it killed. The corn came through. Everything looked fine. In the first 14 days of early family corns, 94 and under, they set their ear girth. We had a big ear, 10 little ears. Big ear. Our combine guy, we don't own a combine. We hired. He calls and he goes, you better get down here. Something went wrong. We're in the combine going, what? Pardon my language. What the hell happened here? The last 2 years was 195 bushel dry corn. And now it's 140. You know, I mean, heart's pounding. It's like, well, we contracted how many bushels? This is how many acres? We're just going to cover the contract. But we got it out. It's dry. Took it to the elevator. Started talking to the breeder. He said, how tall is that rye? I said, oh, it's 18, 20 inches. Ooh, not on early family corns. They don't like that shading. Bad move, guys. Really? The 2 years prior, we had no problem. He goes, it didn't get as big, did it? No, it was like 6, 8 inches. He goes, get it killed earlier. So in that case, we should have killed it before we planted it. Didn't know. The other thing happened with this farm when we killed the cereal rye. We had these little army worms. They're amazing little tools. They marched over to the cornfield here, and I came over this hill and it looked like the cornfield was disappearing in front of me. Whoa, what's going on here? Got out in there. I'm like, whoa, they're devouring it. Got the co-op out there, insecticide. And I know everybody talks about health and the good guys and the bad guys. Well, my dad fought in a war. My grandpa fought in a war, and there's collateral damage in every war. My war is I got to raise a crop. Sometimes everybody dies. I'm sorry. The good guys and the bad guys all got to go bye-bye. I'll rebuild the good population later. But I can't lose a cash crop either to this stuff. I know I've been at events where big speakers get up and say, oh, don't worry about army worms. Really? Because when they're taking your corn and it's just going away, you're losing your ass at that point. Like I said, sorry, Archie Bunker. You're losing, and you can't keep doing that. You can't go backwards. Now, when we spray our cereal rye, we scout it. If we find army worms, insecticide in the burn down, and they die that day, they're done, toast, we're out. Because they will eat beans too. It's not their preference, but we've seen them chewing on our beans. So you scout your cereal rye, scout your winter trit, scout your winter wheat that overwinters. If the bugs are there and they're bad guys, I'm sorry, they got to go. You can't sacrifice. I love regenerative and sustainable and all them happed up buzzwords. You know the word I like? Profitability. We got to be profitable doing this. Are we profitable? Yes, because we're cutting a lot of inputs. We're not making passes over the field. We're saving a crap load of fuel alone. 60, 70 grand a year in fuel savings. I mean, it's great. We plant. We sprayed this once. Never sprayed again. Combined them. There's 62 bushel beans. I don't know. Even at $9 beans, that worked great. You know, at $14 beans, yeah, grin, kind of smile when those come off the field and going, let's see, we planted, sprayed, and combined. Huh. Well, looks like I'm a little proud. Let's wonder what we're buying this year. You know how you double your money? Fold it in half and put it in your pocket. Best way to double your money. Put the big bills on the inside too, so you don't spend them right away. That was a joke from Seinfeld years ago. Kramer, double your money. Okay, now let's talk annual ryegrass. So when guys want to start talking about interseeding, we go farther north. Cover crops are harder to establish. We don't have enough time to grow them. Guys get this great idea. We want to interseed V2, V3 corn. We do a lot of it. Yes, it works great. But I always say the but side of it. But it's a higher management situation. Herbicides have to be right. I tell everybody, look back 2 years. Sonic in soybeans as a pre-emerge will smoke ryegrass the next year in corn. That thing is a rock star killer. It's better than Gotti's boys, man. He takes out everything, but it will kill ryegrass the next year. Or ding it bad enough, you got a poor stand. We use annual ryegrass versus cereal rye. Annual ryegrass takes the shading, shuts down at 85 degrees, doesn't hurt your cash crop, comes in the fall. If I had cattle, I don't. We did that for 25, 30 years, not doing it anymore. My grandfather had dairy. My uncle ran dairy. Then we went to beef. Did it for years. Growing up as a kid, we had cattle until I was in my 40s. We got rid of the cattle, and I'm 54 and I'm not going back. Anybody has cattle, I appreciate the heck out of you guys. You get up early in the morning when it's cold as hell and go out and work on them. I'm sitting out drinking my coffee thinking, I remember doing that. Sucks. Sorry. I mean, I get it. You guys are really my heroes because you go out and do this and I won't do it anymore. But I should be grazing livestock on this. There's a lot of feed I'm leaving on the table, but I want to feed my microbes. Carbon markets. Myself is my own carbon market. All the carbon I'm plowing in my soil to feed my microbes right here, you can't pay me enough for that. You really can't pay me enough to sell carbon for the carbon I'm putting in my soil to feed my microbes, to feed my cash crop. That's my benefit of this thing. But this is a great way. This is after combine. This is in the summer or late fall. This is after it got combine. Combine cart, semis over the headlands, compaction issues being taken out, carbon being put in, residue disappearing. It's the point now by the end of July, our residue is completely gone. Our soil's completely consumed it. We're trying to figure out more things to put out there to get more residue built up because it just devours them. You talk about, remember that song, The Sound of Silence? You know, here, You get in our fields in the spring when it's dead calm, and you can hear that. You can see the leaves being pulled in by the earthworms, and everybody laughs about that and says, "Bull." No, it's the truth. It's really cool. I mean, it is one of those things you go, I should take a picture. And it's like, nobody believed me anyways. So I just go on and let them do their job. But they do devour all this. And when they crap out, their craps are worth like 10 times fertility from a fertilizer spreader. So that's great. But this is annual ryegrass. Annual ryegrass has two varieties that were started raised in the Willamette Valley back in the 50s, Westerworld and Tatilia. Anybody ever raised Italian rye here? Everybody ever had Italian rye? That is Tatilia. Hard to kill, waxy coating, overwinters. Do not use it as a cover crop. We sell a diploid variety, single gene ryegrass, comes in Westerworld. We have varieties stated, 2 of products we sell. We know what the varieties are from OSU. We purchased them. We know what this is. The spin of that is, the next thing is tetraploid ryegrass. So 3 gene ryegrass. They spray a herbicide in the valley to break the genes. They don't have to tell you what it is. You can spray accent on it, won't kill it, because that's what they used that year. They mix it up, so they don't use the same thing over and over again. They don't tell us what it is. So there's a problem. You get that in a bag, can't kill it. The other thing is variety versus brand. There are brands which could be 2, 3 varieties. Our Bounty is an earlier setting seed variety. Some of the other ones are later setting varieties. You got to know that for termination. You could go spray it, it greens up. Spray it again, it greens up because you got 3 varieties in that bag. They got to tell you what it is on the label, but the guy buying it from might not tell you that there's 3 varieties. You just said, well, it's, we used to put a thing up here called Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote varieties, and the Roadrunner was a true variety and the other was like a multi-species one. So you got to watch that when you're buying ryegrass. You can buy VNS. VNS could be turf perennial, forage. There's a lot of things that spun off the Westerworld variety due to breeding. So if you're buying ryegrass, awesome, it's great, but know what you're buying. Cereal grains are cereal grains. Annual ryegrass, it's a different world. And it overwinters, and you can kill it. We've killed it very successfully. You got to make sure between 9 and 3 during the day, buffer your water so you got a neutral spray solution. Don't use dirty water out of your inductor to tie your glyphosate up. We used Optil Pro. This is going to beans, Optil Pro, and spiked it with glyphosate. We killed it. The next 3 days after you spray needs to be over 40 degrees at night. And I know up here that could be a little challenge, but the reason being is it's got to get in the root system so that it doesn't pop up, because you kill it here, the top, the root is alive, it comes up and it pops up over here. It's like a bunch grass. It's like quack grass in a way. So, like I said, it is a great forage. It's a terrific cover crop. If you talk about breaking up compaction, this thing will break up compaction better than any brassicum. Dr. Lloyd Murdoch of the University of Kentucky has done massive research on fragipan in the South. Down 2 feet or 1.5 feet in the South, they have fragipan, it's a bedrock layer. Oak trees hit it and tip over because they can't root through it. He's proven ryegrass going through that, and when the excretes are released, when it dies, it starts to mineralize that fragipan, but it'll bust through it. My son, when he was in 6th grade, wanted to win the science fair. And I said, water quality. So he took a tote, put in potting soil, put a thing of saccharine about this thick, put topsoil, and planted cover crops and corn. The corn hit that, went sideways till it got to the edge and went down. The cover crops went through that. The ryegrass went through it the best. He did win the science fair with that thing because he could explain. That poor kid's been strapped to me since he was like 6 years old doing this. He's 19. He could do this presentation better than I can. I'll get talking and be like, oh yeah, ryegrass, cereal rye. And he just starts rattling it off. It's like, why don't you do this? No, I don't like to speak in public. I said, you do it better than I do and he's young, he's in college. Down at MSU, they're learning a lot of this stuff. And one of the classes he had, the guy says, you know what cover crops are? And David goes, you want me to explain them to you? He got done. The guy said, you want to get up and talk for a little bit? He said, you know more than I do. Well, he's been strapped to me since he's a little kid, and he's probably sick of listening to it, but he gets this. On the farm, he really gets what's doing on the soil. Now you have summer annual grasses. So once again, the grass layer. Teff grass, sorghum sedan grasses, all those are summer grasses. You cannot plant them for 65-degree ground temperature They're going to freeze off at 32 degrees. They're a great summer forage. They're a great cocktail in a cocktail mix of anything in July and August. The later you get in August, it gets cooler at night. The sun goes down quicker. We don't recover them fast enough. You're not going to get the growth out of them. The beauty of them, there's a huge mycorrhizal fungi producer. So you talk about good fungi in the soil. Mycorrhizal fungi is one. Oats for a small grain is a terrific producer of this. The summer annuals are terrific producers of that, and that's what we need to feed our crop. We need more fungi in the soil. Good fungi. So that's where these come in. This is teff grass. You guys ever run short of forage? You want teff grass? It's a true summer annual. It's a great one. It's the antichrist of soil health. You work the ground. You roll it until it's as hard as this floor. You blow it on top. You tamp this thing in. 10 days, it's out of the ground. 35, 40 days, you're cutting it. The stuff yields like a rock star. But once it hits 32 degrees, it's dead and gone. It's Ethiopian grass is what it really is. The first time we did this in southern Minnesota, guy had 250 cows with calves next to him, preventing the plant, needed feed. So we did about 300 acres of this. He did the first 40, cut it on Monday, tedded Monday afternoon, Tuesday pulled together 14%. He called me up, he goes, "You're a liar." I said, "Been called worse." He says, "There's no way this is going to ton out. You know how many bales I got off that 40? I said, "How many?" "This many." I said, "Okay." I said, "You weigh one yet?" "Nope." "Weigh one." I said, "Did you make smaller bales like I told you to?" "Nope, 5x6s." "Okay." So he went out with the skid loader, couldn't pick it up. Then he took the payloader out and picked it up, and they weighed 5,250. I said, "What is it going to yield now?" And he says, "You're probably right." And I says, "Say that a little bit louder." He goes, "No, I'll kiss my ass." He goes, "I'm not saying it louder." I said, "Yeah, you're right." He goes, "Man, they're heavy." I'm like, "Don't make them so big. I told you." He goes, "That stuff really packs." I said, "Yeah, I told you. It's a small blade, excellent feed. Any species can eat it. So it's really terrific, but you got to do it right. You can't no-till drill it. It just won't take that. You get it too deep and it doesn't work. So let's talk brassicas, like Jennifer said, talking about busting up compaction. So these are the different styles: tubers, bulbs. Anybody know what this one is? I'm gonna pick on the co-op lead. You know what this one is? It's actually buttonweed. We have it in southern Minnesota. It is a brassica. And the reason I put this up here, it's a broadleaf. So when you spray a herbicide to kill a broadleaf, and then 30, 40 days later, you see the cover crop and say, "Okay, now kill this, but don't kill these." And it says, "No, I kill them all because it's this style plant." So when you start adding the covers to your system, you got to look at your herbicides, because anything kills broadleaves will also kill all of these, because they are technically a broadleaf is what they are. So this is kale. This is kale, African cabbage, the radish. Everybody knows the radish, the rock star radish, right? Radish is the wimpiest, probably most expensive per pound brassica you can use. It's 35,000 seeds per pound. The other thing is, as you start doing this, and I should have done this in the grasses, I'm sorry, everything has different seed sizes. So I usually pick on, like, my wife. She's 5'2" and she weighs like 95 pounds. I think the reason she married me is I'm fairly good shade in the summer, heat in the winter, and if it gets windy, she hangs on. She flops on my side like a rag, but I don't go anywhere in a heavy wind. I'm pretty much grounded, but she's flinging all over the place, But so we're different sizes. I mean, God didn't create us the same. They don't create seed the same. So same in the cereals are the same way to the grasses. The grasses, like annual ryegrass, is 175,000 seeds per pound. Cereals are 16, 18,000 seeds per pound. So there's a big variation when you're buying seed. Brassicas are the same way. Radishes are 35,000 seeds per pound. Kale is 175,000 seeds per pound. This is 2.25 retail. This is $2 retail. You take 3 pounds of radish, take 1 pound of kale. This lives 14 or 20 degrees for 20 hours. This lives 14 degrees for 20 hours. This lives a lot longer in the fall. I wish I had a picture of winter camelina. Winter camelina is an overwintering brassica that we've really brought to the market through NDSU. And I think the farther north is something we really need to look at, because it does overwinter, comes up in the spring, gets a taproot style like this going down, breaks up compaction in the spring for corn and beans, easy to terminate with herbicide. I think that's something, because brassicas suck up nitrogen and phosphorus. Grasses suck up mainly nitrogen, some phos and some potassium, like your corn crop. So these are great for phosphorus and nitrogen scavenging. They scavenge a lot of it. But you got to look at the different tuber sizes. So turnips, everybody loves turnips if they're grazing cattle. And I know everybody's heard about Bessie who died when she choked on a turnip. She was 40 years old. She had no teeth. That's the problem. I mean, if I didn't have teeth and swallowed a big hunk of candy or something, I'd probably choke too. So they work great. They're a great grazer. I like them in cocktail mixes because they're an excellent earthworm magnet. If you don't have earthworms and you put turnips out there, you're going to find earthworms in there right away. The thing about the radish I like is they're compaction noticers. So they go down, and when they first hit the first layer of compaction, they'll kink. Then when they hit the second layer, they'll kink. So I've had guys at 3 inches and 7 inches with kinks. Well, there's your field cultivator, there's your ripper. I'll say you got 2 levels of compaction your corn roots have to go through before it gets to the goodies underneath. Well, I'll rip it deeper. Now the compaction layer will be at 9 inches in. So they did a study on rippers on these when they smear through, when it's anything over, and I can't remember the moisture level, how much compaction it puts in at that level. Mother Nature takes it all out. You've got to feed her. My wife is an excellent worker as long as I give her some food. Even though she's small, she still needs to eat. And at night, I let her have a few beers because she is check. If I eliminate one of those things, the day will not go good in my house. I can tell you that. But same with this. If I feed my biology with this, with the carbon that's going in from all these different plants, my crop's going to be better. So I like the brassicas. I think there's a great place. But when you're putting mixes together, don't talk pounds. Talk seeds per square foot and how many seeds are in each pound of this, because they're not all the same. This is 200,000. This is 175. This is 190. I don't know how many is in buttonweed. A lot, I would imagine. But there's a lot in every head. I know that. This is why the difference of the rooting. See just the straight tuber? See the laterals going off? That's what you want, is those lateral structures. That's huge. All right. Everybody knows the legume side of it. You got clovers. You got peas. They're different sizes. This is crimson clover. If you have small grains and you get crimson in early enough, you'll get this pretty red flower. You have people want to take senior pictures. Get a little sunflower and this out there, and you can charge up the wazoo for girls who want to take pictures of this crap. It's just insane what they'll pay to get a picture of this red ass flower and a sunflower, which whatever. We've had people come out to our field. Can we get a picture? Yeah, go ahead. Whatever, knock yourself out. You know, like take pictures, do presentations. They're taking pictures for senior pictures out there. I'm like, yeah, whatever. You want a tractor in the background? No, just this. Okay. And then you get the pollinators. So you talk about guys with bees, you know, that's kind of so you talk about sources for income off this. Well, pictures. We have guys that bring beehives out and set, and we get paid for the bees. We have guys like Jennifer talked about, they want to come graze our covers all the time. We probably should let them do it, but I don't want to put fence up either. There's an awesome opportunity for income off this besides the soil health benefits. So this is peas. I like peas in all the mixes. Peas a bigger seed though. And then there's summer peas and there's fall peas or cooler season peas. Then there's Austrian winter peas. Contrary to the name, they don't overwinter for us in the north. They burn off because of the frost or the wind. They will live longer than a summer pea like a cowpea. So you start putting peas in the mix. Peas are 1,500 seeds per pound to 4,000 seeds per pound. So you start doing the mixes, you got to look at those sizes. Clovers are from 80,000 to 400,000 seeds per pound. Big difference when you start buying clover. And then there's coated and inoculated and raw. I tell everybody in the summer, use raw. It's a higher seed count. It costs them more, but you get way more bang for your buck. Where I use coated in Minnesota especially is frost seed in the spring and fall, where I don't really want it to get going until it warms up enough. We break that apart but during the summer, when we got that drought, the raw works better because you can spit on that and get it to work. The coating, which is supposed to draw moisture, does, but we've had to draw moisture. It just gets started to run out of moisture and actually die in that coating yet. So I like the raw version. Peas are great. Red clover is something we can get more use of. So the legume side is great. If you're going to try to produce nitrogen for corn, I get this all the time. I want legumes. I'm going to put nitrogen for my corn, so I don't buy nitrogen anymore. I'm here to tell you right now, I am never going to tell you that you're not going to buy fertility unless you want to go organic and you're not going to buy fertility. That's your call. Otherwise, crop removal, you're going to still buy fertility. What I look at, from the retail side that I work with, I tell them we're going to manage fertility better. We're going to keep fertility in its place. We're going to utilize it better. I am the only seed salesman. I'm not the only, but the cover crop seed people are the only people who are going to tell you, I had you plant this crop in the fall, it overwintered, kill it. I want it dead. Whoa. How many other seed people say kill the crop they sold you? Not many. It's going to die, but I'm telling you to kill it. It's done its job. It's time to die. So, and I probably should say that different, but I'm not. It's time for it to recycle to Mother Nature. Is that politically correct, Jennifer? Does that sound better? Don't get myself in trouble with people, but I mean, it's the truth. It's going to break down. So where you get the most nitrogen out of legumes is in the top biomass. The nodulation takes all year. If you remove any of these covers for forage, you do the forage test, you've removed nitrogen from your farm. So that's fine if you know that and you're going to prepare for it. But I have guys raise cereal rye. A neighbor will come over and say, can I take a forage off from it? I'll say, what's the protein? 16%. You gave up 80 pounds of nitrogen. No, I didn't. Yeah, you did, because it equates out. So you gave that up. Now, if you get manure back, that's fine. If they pay for some fertility or they buy it from you, that's fine. But if you're in a government program, do not sell your cover crops, or don't tell them at least. Because that's a naughty, naughty, naughty. Don't do that. I never told you to do it. Don't ever do that. I've said that a million times. Don't sell your cover crop. Your neighbor, if you give it to your neighbor, that's your call. But don't sell it because you've been government contract. Same with seed. If you have government money and you have a cereal rye crop and you take it for seed, don't put that thing on the open market because you're under contract with the federal government, the state government, to produce a cover crop to terminate it, not to take it for seed. I have to make that real clear because yesterday in the meeting, somebody's like, well, I've been taking seed and taking the government money for 20 years. And I'm like, I looked at the government people and they're like, I'm like, I didn't tell him to do it. I mean, he's doing this on his own. You guys work it out. I mean, he goes, well, I didn't know it was a problem. Yeah, it's a problem. So we got to talk about that. But legumes are great. I think they got a real place the farther north we go. We're working on like these drone seeders for application. We're doing a mix from beans to corn of higher legumes, brassica, and no grass in front. Starting out, you can have grass in front of your corn. It does work as long as you prepare for the nitrogen. As you go farther into this, Iowa State is showing a lot of information on seedling diseases that's affecting corn. It's not killing it. The iliopath scare from the cereals is a scare. It's a wives' tale. It does not kill corn that's a big seeds planted 2 inches deep. It kills everything in the top 1/8 inch of soil. Yes, and small seeds. But the Pythium and Fusarium and the iliopath combined together can cause seedling diseases. The seedling diseases can set your corn back. There's spots in Iowa from here to the wall that the corn's this tall and the rest of the corn's this tall. Now, the corn's there, it grows, it does yield, but it doesn't yield what the rest of the field yields. So they're very aggressive. We're very aggressive as a company, trying to figure out some new ideas from beans to corn. In the beginning, it's finding the grasses, using the annual ryegrass. But as we go farther, we're going to have to get to the legumes and brassicas more than the grasses. I know that's got to happen, plus the carbon footprint and the whole set there. Okay, where do we start? I always say start with something you can control. There's never a mistake. There's test plots. And I have guys that have big test plots some years. Now, what we've learned from those is benefits. We've learned what not to do. And I've done this long enough to tell you a lot of things don't do. Just, don't do that. It's not going to work. Trust me. Keep trying to make it work. I got guys that they keep going, and I'm glad they do. Network with other producers doing this. The kind of the neat part of the soil health venture is anybody who's doing this is really open to talk to everybody about it. I'm very open to talk to people about it. Now, you have to be a little cautious as you do talk. It's kind of like Wikipedia. Wikipedia, if you can state your comments on there and they'll take it as gospel. And the internet, search out information. Google is not always gospel. Sometimes Google throws a wrench too. So some people get up and make a lot of boastful claims. There's a gentleman from Southern Illinois, Indiana area. I know him very well. He's a good friend of mine, but he talks a lot in numbers about cereal rye and balansa clover and the huge numbers of nitrogen he's getting. That's terrific in his world where he's at. We don't live there. And he does not have the winter we have. And he's got a little bit longer season. We can make a lot of things work, yes. But those numbers he shows, and I've confronted him and I said, you got to tone those things down. You got to get back to reality of guys starting out. you're going to set them up to fail. I do not want anybody to fail at this. If they start doing this with me, I want it all successful. I am selfish that way. I want it to work for you on your operation so you're successful. So I always say, look for markers in your field that you can identify. I think that's a problem. That is flat ground. I mean, that is flat ground by Hope, Minnesota. And everybody says, you know, heavy rains, you don't get erosion with flat ground. Well, I don't know what this is. Then if that's not erosion. The thought pattern here was real simple. It's going to be a little bit later sweet corn, so let it go. Then we got a 3.5 inches rain and it did this. So then the county came and cleaned the ditch out. And then the wind blew and it was blowing so bad. So they went and worked 30-foot strips, skipped 60, worked 30, skipped, and they worked all the way across this field. And then the guy sat in the tractor until it dried up, and then he worked in between again. And then 3 days later, we got a 3-inch rain and it filled the ditch in again. Now, two things. One is this farm over on this side just sold for $14,000 an acre 3 weeks ago. How much did they let go down the river? Literally. Now, at the time this picture was taken, land was going for $5,600. It's still $5,000-$6,000 plus all the nutrients and fertility that's in here. I mean, come on, you just let it go somewhere. You know why ditches in southern Minnesota grow so good? Because all the fertility we put in there every damn year. Man, we got a lot of fertility in our ditches. We got high-end PK. It grows a crop like you wouldn't believe. And we hay them. Everybody's like, oh, a great hay. Well, no kidding. You know how much fertility's in there? But how much herbicide's in here? You know, phosphorus doesn't move. Ooh, it moves when it's hooked to this. Goes right where you don't want it to go. This is a marker that you can see that's got to stop. Then this, drowned out spots. Get your infiltration better. This, when the guy started, this used to completely drown out. That was a 4-inch rain, and that's all its water standing on it right now. He's going to have a crop off this. This, done, toast. Not going to make it. Going to be a bare spot. Then what's going to come here after this? Weeds. Mother Nature will constantly armor her soil. I'm not holistic or anything, but if you don't put something out there, she's gonna. And she'll pick that center plant in my brassica thing with a lot of foxtail or something, and then you got a weed bank and it's all over the countryside and your neighbors are mad at you, blah, 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 blah. So you got to keep it. Here's another thing. When Trump wanted to build the wall, I said he could have built it from here to here. This is my uncle's field. This is in his contract, the neighbor, you will till my farm or you will not run my farm. Every year this happens. Nothing changes. Now, God rest Laverne's soul, he's passed away. His daughters actually came to us a month ago and said, how do we stop this? You know how much dirt we've given you? And I said, you want it back? Because this is crap. It's sugar sand. You can have, we'll push it all back on your side. No, we don't want it back either. Oh, we really don't want it on this side. It's not benefits to us. But it kills, this is an all solid rye cover crop, and it smothered it out. Now, that's not good. Well, they're gonna actually have them start doing conservation practices. It's gonna take some time to fix, but it will amend itself. So that's great, but that's a marker. And everybody accepted this. You know, we talked about, Jennifer said 5 tons of erosion per year. This farm when I was a kid was dark black. It's like a tan color now. I see that all the time driving around. I see these tan hills that used to be black because we've eroded it all down to the bottom. You know, they talk about, somebody said yesterday, if I had a big bulldozer, I'd push it back to the top. We'd get a 3-inch rain and it'd wash right back to the bottom. I said, you wouldn't fix it that way. All right, so how to start? Corn and soybeans is a great starting point. Winter cereal rye, fly it on, drill it after harvest, works out terrific. Plant your beans in the spring. Make sure you get it down 2 inches deep, close the trench, burn it off the herbicide. It works great. There's ileopath effects. It helps with weed control. It helps with water infiltration. We have not sprayed for aphids for 6 years with cereal rye out in the field. We just don't get them. We don't get white, and we're very susceptible to white mold in our area. Very bad white mold. We do not get the white mold. And agronomy people will agree with me on this one. We don't get the water splashing, so we don't get the dirt blowing up on there with the water, with the fungus in it. We don't get white mold anymore. Same with seed corn diseases. Some of the seedling diseases on corn and some of the corn diseases. If you keep the ground from splashing on the corn plant, you'll keep those diseases where they belong. Plus rotation. Adding that third crop breaks rotation cycles of a lot of these pests. So there's a lot of ways these covers can help. Corn silage or early crops, small grains, awesome. If you have small grains, it's a great place to start. Corn silage is an excellent place to start. We have canning in our area also, so we utilize those acres. If you're going to go early with cocktails, how many plants do you need and how far do you go on these mixes? So let's look at quickly, and we'll keep going here. I know we're running out of time. How have we done this? There's probably a way we have not figured out a way not to apply covers. All right, so we've flown them on. If you have a decent ag pilot that understands how to fly. Now, the farther north you go, and I know this area is probably very susceptible, there's protected areas. I hate when I get calls from the DNR saying, why are there turnips growing in this woods? We don't want that. I said, the deer will eat them. We don't care. We didn't pay for it. Well, I don't care. The farmer paid for it. Don't worry about it. But they don't like our things getting where it's not supposed to be. I don't know why they eat them, but they don't like that. So plain guys get around sensitive areas, watershed, stuff like that. They got to be more careful. Housing developments. Yeah, we've had some planes shot at in the morning. Yeah, we had one guy, he got kind of pissed off, 6 in the morning, we're buzzing him and he's hung over and he steps on the shotgun and bam. The pilot was a Vietnam pilot and he landed and beat the shit out of the guy because he says, don't shoot at me again, buddy. He said, I got shot at for 2 years by people that actually tried to hit me and you didn't miss, you missed and you were bad. Oh boy. So we had the sheriff there and that turned in kind of a rough day before though, because it just wasn't fun. That was actually the guy in this plane. So he says, yeah, you're not shooting at me. So anyway, we've done the planes. It works great. This is what it looks like in the fall when it's growing. High clearance machines. This has been something we've added in the last couple of years. We got some co-ops that are going to come on board with these. This one's a 90-footer. The guy who had this just upgraded to 120 feet. So he follows the tram lines of most of the sprayers. We can actually blow seed that far with a fending box or the Montag box. Works great. He actually runs the dividers. The nice part about having a farmer do it is he treats every field like it's his field, takes his time around the ends. This gets it below the canopy a little bit better. He goes into standing corn with this same unit and doesn't push the corn down, but he gets it below the canopy. So the plane flying at the range of plane flies, it kind of gets spread out. If it's windy, Andy can go, the planes are grounded. If it's foggy, Andy can go, the planes are grounded. If it's too wet, the planes can fly and Andy's grounded. So it's kind of nice having a couple options that way. This is a VT unit that we run in southern Minnesota. My sons run a custom business, and we run this one. We use Gandy. Gandy's 18 miles from us. I'm not just promoting them, but the box works great. Montag makes a terrific box. Montag actually showed us yesterday and the day before a box for the side of the combine. It's damn near 2,000 pounds. It's not the Gandy one, but it mounts on the side of the combine, and it blows it underneath the head. And I think there's a lot of merit to doing that, especially earlier crops, water retention. You got that residue going out there that's got moisture to it. I think there's some really great opportunities with those kind of products. I wish I had a picture of that in this slide presentation. We use this, small grains, soybeans, corn. We VT everything. We have guys that spread fertilizer prior to this. We VT it in for them. They are compliant to the programs now. But this has really worked well for us. My son's only complaint is that we have this in between. Going down the road, that sulfur gets whipping a little bit because there's not a lot of tongue weight. If we ever redid it, we'd put the box behind, hook the sulfur direct, then he could go wide open. Because he's young, and he likes that 23 miles an hour versus 18. When I move it, I think 18's fine, plenty fast enough. We're getting where we need to go, but those two like to go faster. No-till drills. This was the day before Thanksgiving a few years ago. How late can you drill cereal rye till it's froze? Put it out there. It'll be there next spring. If it doesn't do anything this year, it'll be there next spring. Cereal rye is a very forgiving crop. The reason the guy did this, he wanted to hold this hill, even with no-till, the stalks would still wash. This year, actually, we did get some growth on it. There's a year it was December, was really nice yet. We got some growth. It held the hill in the spring. It took off growing really early. We got the control he wanted on that hill. And the other thing, he got better water infiltration on the hill by doing this. He's soaking more water in than coming down after he gets the rain. So it's really working well for him. This is another farm that we actually, Andy blew this in the soybeans. It's cereal rye, annual rye, and some kale. It's a great little catch coming. It's really working well. This is drilled. I show this because everybody says, it's a failure. Oh, no. In the spring, it'll look like that field that my uncle's planting into. So it works just fine. But this is drilled in this fall. All right, so let's talk cocktail mixes quick. Everybody likes to get on these cocktail mixes. More species, 30 things, everything is great. there's redundancy in cocktail mixes too. And there's stuff you put out at the wrong time that doesn't work. So I like putting this picture up out here. This is southwestern Minnesota. This guy's a major feedlot down there. He's got 17,000 steers on feed all the time. So he's constantly trying to make forage. This farm had a slight phos problem for years of manure application. It was about 400 parts per million, a little high. He wanted a new feedlot permit, and they said no, not until you get your phos cleaned up. He'd raised corn on corn for 9 years on this and hadn't moved the phos level at all. We went in, 2 bushels of oats, 2 bushels of rye, kale, took 2 forage cuttings off it, spring and fall for 2 years, and went from 400 to 175. He got his feedlot permit because we removed the phosphorus from the farm. We took it in the forage, and it's great feed quality. Now, the thing we found out about spring oats in the fall, which nobody told us, and I probably should have known, there's no lineant in a spring grain raised in the fall. We got a snow, and it went flat one year, and it doesn't stand back up. Barley, spring trit, spring wheat stands upright in the snow. Oats does not stand back up. Now, he didn't get a big cutting that year off the oats. Wasn't worried about it. He took the big rye cutting. He gets 9 to 10 ton, sometimes 12 ton in the spring off from it. Great feed. It's anywhere from 12 to 16% protein, depending on when he cuts it. So he's accomplishing what he wants to accomplish. The reason I took this picture, this was drilled September 1 when he took the corn silage off. This is 30 days later. So that's 30 days of growth. He took at the end of the month. He took at the end of October. It was double his size then at that point. So can you raise stuff? Absolutely. There's always something. And if you have cattle, and I tell you, if you have cattle, this is such a no-brainer at that point. All the feed you can make off acres. The other part is if you're knifing manure, now you wouldn't want this high rate, but if you're knifing manure and you got this active growing cover and you're knifing manure or spread manure on top, it sucks up the sulfur smell way faster. There's study after study after study done about that, about how much you can get rid of. So when I talked about working in a large feed mill, the hog expansion in my area was a very, it just turned into a crap show. Neighbors sued neighbors. People got in fights. I mean, it was nasty. Nobody wanted that shit smell by their place. Sorry. But nobody wanted that crap smell by their place. If we would have known this, I think we could have done a better job of showing that it doesn't have to be the big bad guy. My tanker guys I work with love cover crops. They run across the end, they go across the field, they come out the other end, and their tires are clean. They're not running in mud. The other thing is they also do the same thing after so many years, the end rows don't get beat up like we don't have this anymore. We have this. So my uncle's 1,000 acres, he has 75 acres of headlands. If you take half a crop off that sucks. If you take a full crop off it like we are now, that's great. Well, that's what this does, is builds a load-bearing structure in his farm that he doesn't sink in with the tankers. We haven't pulled a combine in years. We haven't pulled trucks out in years since we started doing this. We don't have the structural problem anymore where we're sinking out of sight all the time. Everything's being carried because we have structure in the soil from the roots. If I could say you have bags of roots and you didn't want the top growth, I would, but plants don't work that way. We can't just get roots to grow, because that's how you actually get the fastest way to build organic matter is not the top biomass, it's the roots underneath. That's the fastest way to raise organic matter. This is great for us to see and visual and look at. And, and then this helps with wind erosion, rain erosion. Jennifer talked about the rain coming down, raindrops. I was doing a meeting, the guy had me stand up. He said, if he could jump 2 feet in the air, which I can't, and took a ball peen hammer and slammed on the ground when I came down, he goes, that's a raindrop hitting the ground. Now, that's a pretty visual. Think of me jumping 2 feet. Well, that'd be pretty amazing to start with. And then go into the ground, which with bad knees, I wouldn't want to do, but that's with a ball peen hammer. That's what a raindrop's like. So if you have this growing in the spring and it busts that raindrop apart, you don't get that splashing all the time. Or you have that residue mat I showed at the beans. You don't have that splashing all the time. That is huge because the raindrops are broke apart and then they soak in. They hit the ground and they compact. One of the guys I work with started strip tilling because he had a farm 8 out of 10 years he had to replant all the time. He went to strip till and he didn't have to replant it anymore because that strip didn't get rock hard after a rain, because he stripped in the fall and just planted in the spring, didn't do anything in the spring. So he got into it by accident. And then he went to a cover crop meeting and then thought it was a joke. And the guy says, you over apply nutrients all the time. How about if you could scavenge it up and recycle it for next year? Whoa, that's a great idea. He's one of my largest dealers in Iowa. They fly on and drill probably close to 30,000 acres in the Cedar River watershed. And 10 years ago, didn't believe in this, but he does now. So, you know, I think there's a lot to it. After small grains, 5-6 things, couple brassicas, couple legumes. This is just grass growing back. This is on our farm after oats. It's a 5-6 way mix. It lived way late in the fall. This is a forage one. So it had a lot more species, a lot higher. He was going to graze this. He ended up taking it for wet baleage also. It was about 26% protein. Put cattle on it. They couldn't keep up grazing it. He ended up foraging it, making wet bales. Terrific forage crop. This is in the spring on that same farm I just showed. We no-tilled into this corn. Had about 195 bushel corn crop. We on about 0.52 pounds N per bushel. Killed off a little bit. This is a little bit of shield mustard and stuff coming. Easy to terminate in the spring. Planted into is very tilty, really easy to work with. The ground was warmer. We have data loggers. Where this was growing and active growing, the ground is warmer than where it was bare. Because your biology is working. It's taking in sunlight and putting in the soil. Yeah, we've proved that data logger thing, that this is colder. If you have an active growing cover crop, your ground is warmer. And then there's a point where they hit even. Our neighbors, who has data loggers, does tillage. His ground goes from 52 to 103 degrees at 2 inches after tillage. Then we get a cold rain and it drops to 42 degrees. Ours is at about 55, 60. Cold rain goes to 59, it starts going back up because of the structure, the water holding capacity, the cover crop growing. So is there merit to this? I believe 100% there is. Okay, now here's my last slide, and this is the one I always put up there. This is my thoughts on why this hasn't worked. All right, number one is equipment. When we started ridge tilling in 1987, we had a 7,000 John Deere planter. We put double springs on it, crappy road cleaners, couldn't close the trench half the time, put drag chains that tumble dirt over the top, placed our fertilizer with an old cart, but we made it work. Now we got Delta downforce, upforce, we got precision discs on there, we got Schlegel closing wheels, we got Shark. We could plant through the blacktop out here if we wanted to and close it up. We got the equipment. We got the equipment to do whatever we want to do now. The experience. When we first started, we had no idea what we were doing. We started doing this, we had no idea what we were going to do. But we made it work. And I always tell everybody, I suppose it's that Dane, German, ornery mentality. We're not going to let anybody else show what we can't, because everybody say, you can't make this work. My uncle would say, haha, watch us. And then he'd sit in the pickup with me and go, how are we going to get this to work? I'm like, I don't know what you told him. He goes, well, you figured it out too. He said, you're in this with me. I'm like, all right. Well, we figured it out. We got it to work. The other part is education. We have a lot more education, universities, extension, watersheds. There is a lot of data coming at us to show how this works. Data loggers, tile line monitors, the cover crop world, how much better we are and what species to use, when to use them, how to use them, what you're going to do, what's your goals. You know, compaction alleviation, erosion, scavenging of nutrients, what's your crop rotation? We understand it so much better than we did 10 years ago, way better than we did 20 years ago. But there was guys 20, 30 years ago doing this. My grandfather did this back in the 50s. They had a clay hill. He'd seed red clover and rape just so that hill didn't wash down during the summer. It had nothing to do with feed. Everybody thought it was feed. He goes, nah, I don't crap about the feed. He said, I just don't want that to constantly keep washing all summer. So he'd make the hired man, he'd cultivate, and he'd make the hired man sit there with a hand seeder. I tell you, that guy had to get sick of doing that after a while, but they covered, you know, at that time, I suppose we had 80 to 100 acres of corn. So he sat there with his little spinner and spun it on. But I mean, we didn't have the education of why we're doing this. We do now. And then the other part is fear. And I did this yesterday. I didn't start out this way. How many of you in this room would make this change if it wasn't the financial fear that you're, you know, lost 20 bushel on corn, this guy went broke, this is, you know, I asked yesterday, the two big groups I did Tuesday and Wednesday, and 95% of them raised their hand and said the fear of financial change or hardship is the biggest reason. So I give you the answer. And, you know, you don't have to raise your hand, but I know in the back of everybody's mind. And I always say, I wear my sales hat forwards, my farmer hat backwards. I stand here and halfway through, I think, do I believe this bullshit? I mean, literally, do I believe this crap? I'm slinging it out here wide open. Yes, I do, because we're doing it. We're making it work. I cover 5 states for this company. I showed that picture. I presented in darn near every one of those states on this soil health because I come from the north. So they take me in the south and they say, well, if you're doing it up there, we make it work here. I believe in this. I've since a kid watched that farm I showed erode. And everybody says we're going to make changes, and it keeps eroding. Pretty soon, it'll be desiccated, degraded to where it won't raise a crop. My kids and my grandkids, I don't want them as fat as me, but I want them to be able to eat. So we got to have clean food, clean water. That comes from healthy soil. We've been blessed with that. We've almost mucked it up. We can bring it back. We can show this can work. So that's my part of the education. And then the fear side of it. I get it's a change. I really get it. Once everybody gets on the team and gets on board, it's not that tough to make these changes. We've made the mistakes. Ask me what they were, I'll tell you. You don't have to remake them. Unless you want to. I mean, you want to make another mistake, go ahead. And tell me how bad it didn't work. I'll have guys call me every year and go, you know, that didn't work. And I'll say, yeah, I told you that. Yeah, I know, but I had to try it for myself. What'd you find out? That didn't work. We're back to square one. Do you want to do what you want? Yeah. You're right, it didn't work. I had a guy in Iowa, the guy I talked about being the dealer. He wanted to interseed. I said, don't use cereal rye. We've tried it. He did it for 3 years. He goes, you're right, that doesn't work. I said, yeah, I told you that. He goes, you know, you're right. I know, I told you, Dean, it wasn't going to work. Shades over canopies, it doesn't take it. Annual ryegrass does. So, you know, those are my spiel. They're bringing food out, so I don't want anybody to miss food. So here's my contact information. If you got any questions, I'll answer them. I'll be around afterwards. If you want to ask questions now, you probably can. Is there anybody after me, Jennifer, or are we done after this?
Yeah, Brian's gonna go up and talk a little bit with you.
Okay, perfect. Any questions, I'll be around. If you want to ask any now. Or did I dazzle you completely?
What's the